So, welcome to the 7 deadly threats to your recruitment and search business in the AI economy. This is a video training. Again, some of you will know this, some of you won't. We're in the process of releasing a brand new book called 7 Deadly Threats in the AI Economy. This is a video training that's going to be released with the book to help you implement some of the ideas in the book. One of the things that we did have on the registration page, just for anyone that didn't read it, didn't realize, anyone that stays to the end, going to give you a free paperback copy of the book shipped out to you. So again, stay for the end to get your copy of that. Just very quickly, just to go over what we're going to be covering today, we're going to be looking at, obviously we're going to be digging into 7 of the biggest threats that are going to be most relevant to you as a recruitment or search business owner right now. Obviously, with the AI coming in, with the economy as it is right now, going to be looking at why a firm half your size with a fraction of your experience is winning briefs that you'd have won without thinking 12 months ago. We're going to look at why it's harder to push cold outreach right now. We're going to be talking about a single conversation that you can have with a client that can increase your fees. And we're going to be looking at whether your firm is going to be one of the ones pulling ahead over the next 2 or 3 years or not. Before we dive in, just want to do a bit of housekeeping, right? So this session is going to be last between 90 minutes to 2 hours, right? There's going to be no pitch, nothing to buy at the end. We're not going to be selling to you. It's going to be pure value. That being said, the value is going to come from your input, right? So we've got a training plan that we're going to give you. But the way that you as an individual can get maximum value out of this call is by being engaged, by asking questions. Anything that doesn't make sense, let us know. Anything that resonates with you, let us know. Anything that's unclear at all, let us know. We're happy to answer any questions that you have whilst we're on the line. But we do need engagement for you to maximize the value from you. So what I would say is to shut down your emails, shut down your LinkedIn, put your phone on silent. Again, for the next 2 hours, if you dedicate yourself to this would be one of the best trainings you'll ever attend this year. Again, is everyone okay doing that? Just give me a yes or no in the chat box. Yes, if you are okay doing that. No, if you're not. If it's a no, absolutely fine. It's probably best for you to leave now, though. Let's part ways as friends rather than you sort of being here and not being fully engaged. But if you are all in, fully engaged, give me a yes in the chat box just so I know that everyone in the room is going to be committed, going to be fully engaged, going to be committed to growing their business over the next 2 hours. Give me a yes in the chat box if you are. If no hard feelings. Promise you that. Let's part ways now, leave as friends. But we do need engagement from you going forward. So again, do want to hear from all of you. Yes, if you're in. No, if you're out, then fine. It's fine to leave. But yeah, let us know. And Terry, anything you want to add?
Yeah, just listen. You rightly said, Drew, this is a two-way thing. You really don't want us talking at you for the next 2 hours. I promise you don't want. Seriously, for this to really work, ask away in shared. And we've got no problem with you asking us any questions whatsoever. You'll get more from it the more questions you ask. If we say something that you question, you don't know, you don't understand, or don't believe, that's okay. Just ask away. And we'll happily answer any questions as we go through this. So, and if you don't ask, we'll be coming to you anyway. So just to let you know, this is going to be very interactive. You're free to ask, and if you don't ask us, we're going to come to you and ask you some questions. So please feel free to ask us any questions at any time.
Perfect, awesome. Before we dive in, just want to do. I know I'm seeing some familiar faces, but there's quite a few people that don't recognise as well. So I want to do a quick survey. So if this is your first time experiencing a training from me or Terry, or me and Terry, give me a 1 in the chat box. If you're familiar with our work, give me a 2. And just so I know how in depth I need to go with the intro. So 1 if it's the first time, 2 if you're sort of familiar with who we are, what we do. Again, do want to hear from all of you. So David 1, Kimberly 2. James 1, Theo 1, Manny 1, Rick 2. I don't know who that is 1, Gwen 2. So a bit of a mix, right? Okay, so let me give you the sort of the really short, abridged version of who we are. So my name's Drew Edwards. This is my business partner and dad, Terry Edwards. Sorry, Terry, how long have you been doing this now?
Nearly 30 years. Been in the recruitment industry.
Years. I've been doing it about 15, right? So what we do is we help recruitment and search business owners. We work with them one-on-one in their business. And we help you do a few things, really. 1, we help you have more conversations with hiring managers in your market. 2, we help you convert more of those conversations into clients for the right fee and for the right terms. And then 3, we help you do both of those 2 things without it's taking time, energy, resources away from you as a business owner. So ultimately, we help you grow in a way where you can still get the freedom that you probably came into the business to enjoy, right? So that's basically what we do. Terry, as you said, been doing it 30 years. I've been doing it 15 years. If you go to makemoreplacements.com/testimonials, there's a whole load of our client results there. But I don't want to go too much into the intro in this call. I wanted to make it as much value as possible, as much value as possible. So look, let's dive in. I want to talk about two businesses or two versions of your business, right? So they look the same from the outside, got same team size, same sector, same talent, but inside they're nothing alike, right? And by the end of the day, I want you to know exactly which one you're running and which one it could be like. Again, just want to check in before we get started. Who here is happy with the current performance of the business? Give me a yes or no in the chat box. If it's a yes, give me a yes. If it's a no, give me a no. Who here is happy with the current performance of the business? Again, be honest. Say space. No judgment here. I just want to know where we're at. Give me a yes or no if you're happy with the space and happy with the current performance of your business. Cool. So a few no's. One yes. Someone needs to be better. Okay. Cool. So look, what we're seeing at the moment is, again, if you're anything like the typical recruitment search analyst speak to, that some of you aren't winning enough work. Some of you are winning work by chasing it. You're doing cold calls. You're doing LinkedIn messages that go into the abyss. And when you get in front of the client, often the conversation comes down to price, because they can't tell you apart from two other firms, right? So what we're seeing at the moment is there's so many other competing firms entering the space that when you speak with a client that you know that you can help, a client that you know that you can transform their business, transform their department, they're putting you up against 2, 3, 4 other recruiters who are promising the same thing, and so it all often comes down to the fee you charge. Again, give me yes or no if you're experiencing that right now. And Terry, anything you want to add to
that? Not at this stage, Drew. No.
Give me yes or no if you're experiencing that right now.
Yeah.
No. So again, on top of that, what's happening is awesome. What's on top of that? What's happening is we're having to work harder to win clients, having to spend more money, more resources to get in front of the right people. Often, even if we're doing well in business, even if we're doing well in 6 figures, 7 figures, a lot of our time, energy, resources is I guess we're being overworked and underpaid, right? So even when we're not working in the office, our mind is on the business, so we're not able to get the freedom that we probably came into business to enjoy. Again, someone check in, does that make sense? Give me yes or no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, and to put this into context, I talk to recruitment business owners every day of the week, and often they say something like this: Terry, I don't think I've got a job. I don't think I've got a business. I've got a job. I've got to do all the work to get the money in. Excuse me. And most recruitment business owners I speak to are former consultants, so they were employed by somebody else, and they wanted to go off on their own for a better quality of life. Sadly, for many, that isn't the case, and they're finding it difficult. And they're finding it difficult to, what can I put this? At a level, their family are now missing out because you're constantly on alert and thinking about your business. So you attend those school plays or you go away on holiday, but you're always glancing down at your phone because you want to know what's going on. That isn't a business. That's a job. You have to work to generate the income. And what we want to share with you is that's not the case for all recruiters. And I'm not talking here about building a massive empire with thousands of consultants, but I am talking about what you can do so you can have quality time with your family, so you can work less but earn substantially more. This is what this is all about. But we're going to share with you what's getting in the way and stopping you from doing that. Back to you, Drew.
So for those of you who said, no, you're not happy with the current performance of your business, or if you are, but you want better, you want more, what we found is, and again, we've spoken to hundreds, if not thousands, of recruitment search business owners over the last couple of years, find out, what are some of the biggest roadblocks, what are some of the biggest challenges holding them back from getting to the next level. And there's seven sort of common ones that we've identified, 7 common ones that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to share with you what they are, I guess what the impact might look like in your business right now, and then most importantly, what you can do to overcome them. Again, just want to check in, first of all, does that make sense? Give me a yes and no in the chat box, then we'll dive into the number one of the first 7 threats. Again, do want to hear from all of you. Give me a yes and no if that makes sense. Again, as we said before, as we go along, if you've got any questions, anything doesn't make sense, anything's unclear in any way whatsoever, let us know. And then we're happy to dive into it more. But let me know if it's making sense so far. Give me a yes or no in the chat box, and if you're ready to move on to the number one threat. Awesome. Manny, yes. David, yes. CEO, yes. Rick, awesome. Perfect. Awesome. So, Tay, I might hand over to you just so I can get my iPad set up. But the number one threat, so threat number one is what we call the commodity trap. Again, if you want to grab a pen, pencil, write it down. So threat number one is what we call the commodity trap. So what's happening is, and again, this is increased with the introduction of AI, but the client can't tell. So any hiring manager you speak to right now. So again, I don't know how much experience you've got, how many years you've been doing recruitment, how well known you are, whatever. The problem is right now, whenever you're speaking to a hiring manager, they can't tell you apart from other firms. Right? There's no way to tell you apart from other firms. And I'd go as far to say is that it's very rare nowadays that I speak to a recruitment or search business owner who actually have the USP, you actually have the unique selling point. A lot of them think they do, but it always comes down to, oh, I specialize in this area, or I've got this number of years experience, or I've got this process. So very, very rarely do I meet someone who has a unique spin on the way they do things, right? So everyone thinks they've got a USP, and even if they're doing something unique, it's not a selling point to the hiring manager, right? So all the hiring manager sees is these lookalike firms, and they can't really tell who's the best one, who's telling the truth, who's actually the best, who's actually going to be the market leader. Again, if someone check in, does that make sense? Give me yes and no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, I talk to recruitment business owners every week, and one of the questions I often ask is, why would a hiring manager work with you rather than do it themselves or any one of your competitors? And very rarely do I get a response that's compelling that would tell me why a hiring manager would work with them rather than anybody else. Got any doubt about this? Go to your competitor's website and read the copy on their website and really define how they're different from you. But think about it from the hiring manager's point of view. They're speaking to you and they're speaking to 3 or 4 of your competitors. And the difference is what? In their mind, as far as they're concerned, they can see no difference. So here's what happens if they can see no difference. Oh, I spoke to Fred, the recruiter, and I spoke to Sarah, the recruiter, and I spoke to Jane, the recruiter. And let's say they're sharing the information with the CEO and MD. And there didn't seem to be much difference. What the decision maker then says is, well, what about their fees? Because now that's the only difference. So now you get dragged into the whole thing about fees. So they say to Sarah and Fred, oh, we've decided to go elsewhere. But I'm based on nothing in the fees because there is no other difference. And you want to consider that, because sometimes recruiters then say, yeah, but my market buy on fees or buy on price. No market buys on price. I'll give you a cast iron guarantee that nobody here is living in the cheapest house or driving the cheapest cars. We just don't. A percentage do, but not the whole market. And there are other factors that are involved in when a hiring manager is making a decision. What we want to show you today is what those factors are and how you can influence the hiring manager's decision so they rather work with you rather than one of your competitors. So listen very carefully. I just want to repeat this, folks. Any questions, anything that we say, please feel free to post it in the box, raise your hand, whatever, but let us know. If we say anything doesn't make sense or you don't agree, let us know, because I want to make sure that you come away with all the information so you can have the business that you truly desire. That's our ultimate goal. Back to you, Drew.
Again, someone check in. Who here over the last 6 to 12 months has lost out? So either you've lost out on a job or lost out on an assignment, or maybe you won the assignment, but you're working alongside, or you're competing against other recruiters on the same job order. But you're the one with the most experience. You know that your process is better. You know that the way you do things is the one to get the better results. But because you haven't, and again, this happens sometimes a lot with contingency, because you haven't been given the right environment to do your best work. So maybe if it's contingency, you're competing against the clock, you're competing against the recruiter down the road, because you haven't been given the environment to do your best work. You're losing out to sort of more, I guess, less experienced recruiters or less quality recruiters. Can you give me a yes or no if you can relate to that, or something similar has happened to you in the last sort of 6 to 12 months or so? Again, or it might not even be a recruiter. Nowadays, it might be actually technology. It might be AI. So the hiring manager is saying, look, what you're promising, I can do the same thing with AI. And so, again, they're competing on price there, right? So it's happening quite a lot. And again, our prediction is, and again, we've seen it already, it's going to happen more and more. Because even though you might be the best recruiter, you might be unique in the way you're doing things, you might believe you have a USP, you might have the best process known to man, right? Again, every recruiter should believe that about their own service. The problem is, to the hiring manager, it looks the same, right? You look like this, and the recruiter down the road looks like this. So again, the question is, how do we? Well, the reason why it's happening is if you don't have a way to differentiate yourself in the way you communicate, the way you talk about your service, rather than saying, look, we're the best, we've got this much experience, or we're specialized in this field, or we've got the biggest database, all things that probably all of us said on this call, right? If we don't have a way to talk about what we do, to differentiate what we do from everybody else, the hiring manager, like Terry says, has no way to tell you apart, right? So the only sort of big difference is going to be the fee. And often, the hiring manager doesn't want to pay a higher fee from when they don't need to. So you get, it's almost like this sort of downward pressure to reduce your fee just to stay relevant. Again, give me yes or no, just making sense. If you've got any questions on this, let me know as well. Give me yes or no to make sense. Terry, before we sort of go on to how you combat this or how you neutralize this, anything you want to add?
Yeah, just like you said there, Drew, the hiring manager didn't want to pay the high fee, and you're absolutely right. Why would a hiring manager want to pay the high fee? Well, if there's a benefit to the hiring manager and a benefit to the business in paying a higher fee, now at least they'll consider it. But here's a challenge. For most recruiters, they're not able to communicate what the benefit is in paying a higher fee. And if you can't do that, you're never going to get the fee that you actually want. Because in my experience, by the way, most recruiters, the fees they're getting isn't the fee that they want. What they're doing is they're accepting the fee that the hiring manager says that they will pay. Think about what's happening there. It's your business, but somebody else is telling you what the fee is they're going to pay you. You go into a car showroom or any retail outlet and say to the seller, "This is what I'm going to pay you." You go to a BMW showroom and say, "Look, I've got 20,000 here, but I want a brand new BMW. So this is what I'm going to pay you." It's not going to happen, is it? But there's a reason for that, and you can use exactly that same process for you. So you tell the hiring manager what the benefit is, and them paying you the fee that you believe you deserve. Back to you, Drew.
Well, again, going to check in, just making sense. Give me yes or no in the chat box. Terry, can you see the chat box?
Oh, no.
Perfect. So Rick says it makes sense. Again, do want to hear from all of you. Is it making sense? Give me yes or no in the chat box before we sort of go into the solution. Make sure we're all on the same page. Yeah. Okay, cool. Perfect. So the way you get around this, the way you fix this, the way you neutralize this is that is what we call unique mechanisms, right? So when you talk about what we do, when you talk about the service that you offer, or so when you speak to hiring manager, you need to have a unique mechanism for your process. And what I mean by that is whether we like it or not, right? We effectively all sell the same outcome, right? The outcome being, look, we're gonna find the ideal candidate for the hiring manager, right? We all sell the same outcome. So again, part of the problem is a lot of the industry are talking about the outcome, right? They're talking about just, hey, look, we're going to find the best candidate, and every other recruiter saying the same thing. What we need to do is have a way to find what we call a unique mechanism for the process that we do, right? So let's say, for example, there's 4 steps to your process, right? And I don't know what it is. So maybe step 1 is to do some market research. Step 2 is whatever, right? It doesn't matter what the steps are. We've all got our own steps. The problem is, let's say there's 100 recruiters in the room. If let's say my step 1 is to do to search my database for candidates, that's going to be the same for every recruiter, right? And so when we're speaking to a client, if we're saying the same thing, it doesn't really cut through the noise, right? But the power in what you do is that you've got a unique way of doing it. So however you look for clients, however you present a shortlist, however you conduct the interviews, right? You've always all of us here have a unique way of doing that thing. Problem is, at the moment, we're not communicating that to the client, right? So what I want you to do going forward is I want you to create what we call unique mechanisms. And you've already got them in place in your business. You've already got these unique ways of doing what you do, but we need to name them, right? And what I mean by that is, let me try and think of an example. So let's say I'm seeing Rachel on the call, right? So someone called Rachel on the call. I've never spoken to Rachel before, by the way, but let's say Rachel works in the same space as you work. You're saying, look, you're going to find candidates, right? So we got, let's say, 3 recruiters. Recruiter A saying they're going to search database for candidates. Recruiter B saying they're going to search database for candidates. Rachel says that she's going to search database for candidates using the R3 method, right? For example. So again, she's given it a name rather than talking about the process itself. Again, just want to check in. Does that make sense? give me yes or no in the chat box. Yeah. So by naming your method, by naming your way of doing it, all of a sudden, me as a client now, I've got no way to compare your method with somebody else's, right? And that's one of the key things you can do to stand out in the crowd, right? So again, to give you an example of that, if we think about like Dyson vacuum cleaners, for example, Dyson vacuum cleaners, they're just a vacuum cleaner, same as multiple other vacuum cleaner brands. But what they do it with their suction is unique cyclone technology, right? So we don't know whether they'll claim it's better, right? And who's to say? But because it's unique, we can no longer compare it to other vacuum cleaner brands. Again, just want to check in. Does that make sense? Give me a yes or no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, another example is Domino's Pizza. We all know when you order a pizza for delivery, you have to wait for delivery. What Domino's then did, they called it the pizza tracker. So it's the same process. Every other company does exactly the same thing, but they called it the pizza tracker. Amazon branded the one click. What they called the one click. I can't remember the word now. My apologies. But when you purchase anything, it's usually just one click. It's the company taking an everyday process. So you guys searching for candidates. Every recruiter here searching for candidates, and there's a number of ways that you can find the candidates. But if you say, yeah, we do a database search, well, everybody does a database search. But if you said we use a unique candidate application, I'm trying to think of a better name, candidate tracking system that identifies the top performers, you're able to now to stand out from the crowd. It's the same process, but you've given it a specific name that means that you can stand out from the crowd. Again, let me just check in if that's. I'm not sure how good those examples are. Just give me a yes or a no if that's making sense in the chat box. So I'll just make sure that we're on the same page. Just a yes if it's making sense. If it's not, let me know and I'll.
Harry, can you go to 2-3 people just to make sure it's making sense, see what their thoughts are on what we've said so far?
Yeah, okay. I'm doing this randomly. So Kimberly, I'm coming to you, and the only reason I'm coming to you because you're the center of my screen. Then I'm going to come to you, Theo. But yeah, from your point of view, Kimberly, is this making sense? Kimberly,
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I was on mute. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think the distinguishing piece is critical, and having that and those unique options is something that we're all missing for sure.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks for that, Kimberly. Theo, your thoughts, feedback?
You're on mute, Theo. Sorry.
Theo, you're on mute.
Sorry. It does make sense, but a question to you, and maybe it's too early in the process, but so you talk about we're going to go and do a database search, or we very experienced in this area, and when we do the database search, we can notice the skill better. Are you saying that even if you're doing a database search, or something as simple as that you need to give it a name and call it something?
Yeah,
correct. Something because none of your competitors will have that.
You're not going and buying an off-the-shelf thing. You call it whatever.
Absolutely, it's the name that you're giving to it, like the pizza tracker. Think about it, you order a pizza anywhere, we have to wait for it. But what Domino's says, look, get this app and track the delivery of your pizza. But every company is exactly the same. When you order a pizza, you're going to have to wait whatever the time is, 30 minutes or whatever.
Okay, cool.
So whatever your process looks the same as another firm, or can be described the same as another firm, we want to distinguish it by giving it a different name. Because suddenly, when we're describing the process, another firm's describing the same process, even though your way of doing it might be better, right? We've got no way of knowing that because it just sounds the same. As soon as we give it a unique name, all of a sudden you're the only one that does it in that unique way. So then you can start to charge a premium. Then you can start to separate yourselves from every other firm. So when it's a beauty parade and you're doing a pitch, and so are 5 other firms, you're the only one that's got this unique way. All of a sudden you set yourself apart from everybody else. If that makes sense.
Okay, got you. Thank you.
Another example would be Apple AirDrop. Think about it. It's a standard wireless sharing function, if you think about it, that everybody can do. Apple AirDrop, though, stands out from the crowd.
Even if it's a bit of hype and spin, is that right? As long as you believe it and you can deliver.
Yeah, and it's not even, I wouldn't even class it hype and spin. It's just standing out from the crowd, because you can say I'm going to search a database, and I'm thinking, Well, that's what Terry said. That's what Kimberly said. That's what Manny said. They all search the database. So they look at, I'm not knocking at you, but they look at you, so what? And you say, yeah, but I've got 20 years experience. Well, the other guy's got 21 years experience. Shall I use that? There's nothing there.
Okay, got you.
Thanks. Let me just go to one more. Rachel. Good afternoon, Rachel. How are you, first of all?
I'm absolutely fine in loving this, I have to say.
Good stuff. Thoughts, feedback, any questions, Rachel?
No, it makes total sense. I'm definitely going to be starting the R3 method.
The Rachel R3 method, by the way.
Rachel R3 method, definitely.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent.
So, because I think we're all of the same mindset of we've all been doing this a long time. You think you have a USP, but it turns out everybody else has the same USP. So you need to find an alternative method.
And by the way, as I said earlier, that's a really good point there, Rachel. If you've got any doubt, go to your competitor's website and read their website and ask yourself this question: could I copy and paste what they've said on their website and apply it to my business? Because you probably could, because there is no difference.
No.
But if you've got the Rachel R3 applicant tracking system or whatever it is, all right, nobody else can say that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So from tomorrow, that's what I'll be using.
Right. Just very quickly, Rachel, there's something in what you said that's quite revealing.
All right.
So we're going to share this information with you. Some of you, and in fact, sadly, most of you, about 70%, will walk away going, that's interesting, that could be good, and do nothing with it. 20-30% will go, I'll do something with that tomorrow. Because here's the thing I want to really emphasize now. It's not the knowledge that's going to bring you the results.
Yeah.
It's the implementation of that knowledge.
Oh, yeah.
That's where you're going to get the results. So please, I'm grateful. I see everybody here is making notes and everything. That's great, but it counts for nothing unless you implement it.
Okay.
So whatever you do at the end of this, you go, yeah, hand on heart, I'm going to get that done in the next 7 days and get it done. And by the way, it will never be perfect. So don't go, I'm going to get it done when it's perfect, because it never will be. Just get something done and you'll get some results. So thanks for reminding me that, Rachel. Thank you. Back to you, Drew. Drew, your mic's off.
Sorry, we're going to move on to threat number 2. Threat number 2 is what we call the cold outreach addiction, right? So what we have, again, I want you to envision your market right now. And again, we're seeing this in multiple sectors, multiple countries. It's always the way. This is the way it is, right? So at any given time, if you think about your service or the candidates you place or the hiring managers you speak to, at any given time, we're probably looking at about 5% of the market who are hiring right now. Sometimes maybe slightly less, sometimes slightly more. Depending on what sector you're in, depending on what's going on in the market right now. But forget the exact number. The bottom line is ultimately we have 95% who aren't recruiting right now, right? They're going to be what we call future buyers, right? So we call them now buyers, let's say, and then here we call them future buyers, right? So everyone's going to buy at some point. We've only got 5% of the market who we can actively serve right now. Again, someone check in. Does that make sense? Give me yes or no in the chat box. Again, if it doesn't, let me know as well. Perfect. And again, this is one of those threats that's been the same for years, but I think because of AI, because of the amount of the amount of tools that are designed to do outreach, amount of tools that are designed to do AI outreach, especially, it's getting worse. So what you get is we've got 5% of the market who are actively hiring right now, and then you get most recruiters will go after this portion, right? So you get almost like 95% of the recruitment market going after this same small 5% of hiring managers, right? And this was a problem before, but I think it's increasing because of AI, because of more people are doing cold emails, more people are doing cold LinkedIn messages, more people are doing cold outreach in general. Because before, where everything used to be so manual, and it was maybe doing cold calls, or maybe you doing anything yourself, even if it was cold email, you're doing it yourself. There was no technology behind it. It was longer, slower, more manual. Now, because people can click a button, target the same clients you're targeting with an AI message that looks pretty much the same as your, going back to threat number 1, looks pretty much the same as the message you're sending. There's so much noise going after that small 5% of the market right now. Again, someone check in. Does that make sense? Give me yes or no in the chat box. Yeah, perfect. So the transition that you need to make, and again, this has always been a problem, but it's probably a bigger one now, is we need to sort of, rather than being this 95% going after the 5% of the market, we need to sort of look at, how do we go after this 95% of future buyers, knowing that at some point they're going to transition into a now buyer, right? So I want you to, rather than your marketing or your business development, the purpose of it being to make a sale or to make a placement. So we're asking questions like, hey, you're hiring now, or hey, I've got this candidate, are you interested? Instead, we're trying to provide value to build a relationship with the prospect, knowing that, I guess the best way to put it is, knowing that they're going to buy at one point, can we make sure we are the first firm they think of when they have a need, right? So rather than trying to interrupt these hiring managers when they already have a need, can we be in their mind first before that need comes? So we're the first person they think of. So as soon as someone hands a notice in, as soon as they have a board meeting and they say, look, actually, next quarter we're going to hire. Can it be, look, actually, Theo or Rachel or Mush, is that they're the first people that come to my head, rather than you see a vacancy or you see that someone's hiring and then you're trying to interrupt them at that point. Again, I just want to check in. Does that make sense? Give me yes or no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you want to add to that? You're on mute, Terry. Hello?
Sorry about that. My mouse was stuck. A couple of things there. Sadly, most recruiters were encouraged, trained to target the now buyers because the percentage of the market are buying right now. So the attitude is they're hiring right now. Let me reach out to them and see if I can help them with this. Here's the problem with that. You and everybody else is doing exactly the same thing. You reach the now buyers. Another problem with it, if you reach out to a now buyer, invariably or rarely do you get to be the first person to reach out to them. So I've given it to some of your competitors. So your chances of getting an exclusive or retained are slim to non-existent. And as Drew said, most hiring managers aren't hiring right now. And that's why all of you here get this statement. We're not recruiting at the moment. And you hear that every day of the week. They're not, because 95% of your market aren't recruiting at the moment. But if you were to change your thinking and say, and acknowledge that, well, actually, most of them aren't recruiting right now, but I want to talk to somebody, well, there are a number of people who are going to be recruiting next month, next quarter, the following quarter. And here's the thing, there's an article on, some social media platform that said that 82% of buyers, when they make a big purchase, they've already made their decision before they meet the seller. Think about it. You're going to buy a car, you're going to buy a house, you're going to buy whatever it is, a watch. You would have already done your research before you go to that showroom or before you look at that. You've already done that research. You know what you're looking for. Especially you guys that are doing search, you're getting fees. Some of our clients get fees of 15, 20, 30. One client got a fee of 65,000 or something. You can't expect to call a complete stranger and say, you don't know me, I don't know you, but we can do this recruitment for you, and we want, we want a fee of 30% of the. It's just ridiculous. They're like, you're kidding me. So hence the reluctance, by the way, to pay you a retainer or to work with you exclusively, because you wouldn't do that with a complete stranger. What your competitors are doing, though, they're putting together marketing campaigns to identify the future buyers who will be buying in the future. So at the very least, sorry, Lee, I'm Theo, I'm going to quote you because you're right in front of middle of my screen. They can say, oh, I know who Leo is. They might call you, Theo, and say, hey, Theo, would like to get your advice about this recruitment we're looking to do. Or alternatively, Theo, you call them, you go, hi, this is Theo. And they say, hi, Theo, because they know who you are, rather than who. Because that's the problem most recruiters get. They call somebody, the hiring manager has never heard of you. By the way, this is the problem that you've all got. The reason you haven't got the business that you want right now is because most of your potential clients have never heard of you. And if you think that a complete stranger is going to spend thousands with you and they've never heard of you, and spend it with you exclusively, I'd say that's delusional, quite frankly. And the recruiters that are doing well and not having the problems, and they've got this steady flow of leads coming in, is because they've got the marketing campaigns behind it. So, example, if you were fortunate enough to work with us, none of our clients cold call. We say you should never cold call anybody. Why don't you call somebody that when you call them, you give them your name, they say hi rather than who? And to do that, you target the future buyers. And in my opinion, if you talk to a hiring manager that says, "Yeah, we are hiring right now," in my opinion, you're too late. You go, "Great. Well, listen, let me say to you, I hope you get that goes well. But I want to talk to you about what's going on in the future." And they all will be at some time. And so this is one of the things that I had to do. That I was on a coaching call this morning, and my client said, "But yeah, you don't always know that they're going to be hiring in the future." Here's another thing worth considering. Any hiring manager or line manager that's got a team, you're probably all familiar with the 80-20 principle. So if you've got a team of 10, 2 of those team members are underperforming. So although they say to you, "Hey, we're at full strength right now, we're not recruiting right now," they probably aren't. But ask them questions about, "Hey, you've got a team of 10, so you've got 2 or 3 people underperforming. What impact is that having on the business? What impact is that having on you?" That's called future pacing, because you're now getting them to think about the future, about these 2 or 3 underperformers that they've got in the team. But every team will have 20% that are underperforming. By the way, 20% that are overperforming. And whether they say whether they're recruited or not, they are considering what to do about these underperformers. That's one way of identifying the future buyers. Every client that you've got has got somebody on probation in the area that you're working right now. You should be finding out who they are, not the name of the person, but what the situation with those and when they're looking to replace them. They're your future buyers. Most businesses have got plans for the future, and there's certain skill sets that they would need for the future. That's what you need to be asking about. But notice that's very much a consultative approach, whereas if you go for the now buy, it's very much transactional. Yes, we are recruiting. We've got 5 other recruiters looking at this. Send me your terms. If you know anybody, send them over. How many times have you heard that? That's transactional. They're just throwing you in with everybody else. You really want to do everything you can to get away from that. Let me just check in if that's making sense. Just give me a yes or no if that's making sense. If it's not making sense, please let me know and I will clarify.
And let us know in the chat box if it's making sense. Again, do want to hear from all of you. Awesome.
Yeah, great. Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah. Sorry about the delay. I'm having a few challenges with my mouse at the moment.
Nice one.
Back to you, Drew.
Cool. So we've got threat number 1 in the commodity trap, then we've got threat number 2.
Sorry, Drew, just very quickly, Nick Collins has said, sorry, what was the title for number 1? Can you just clarify that for Nick, please?
I was just saying the commodity trap. Number 1 is commodity trap, 2 is cold outreach addiction, and then 3 is what we call the invisible expert problem. So the invisible expert problem. So this threat is probably the most common. Is again, it happens. It's less common in new recruiters, but the more experienced you are, I guess the bigger the problem it is. So what happens is you've got tons of experience. You've probably even known as the expert to your small group of clients, to your network, right? But outside of that, outside of the clients that you've had for years, there's a network you've been working with for years. That's getting smaller by the day, by the way. Outside of that, you're sort of invisible, right? So we call it like the invisible expert problem. So, and again, it's sort of linked. All these threats are linked, by the way. So if the audience, if the market, if your sector can't see or doesn't know that you're the one with the most experience, you're the one with the best process, you're the one with that's most likely to get them the outcome they want. If they don't know that, if they don't know the experience you had, they don't know the insight you've got from conversations with clients you've had over the years, conversations you've had with candidates over the years, to know what salaries should be offered right now, to know all these details that you get from speaking with people that you speak to, right? That only you know. If the market doesn't know that, you're sort of invisible. And what we find now, this is a bigger threat of now than any, because it used to be a case of that very few recruiters were doing any content. But now you're seeing even the less experienced recruiters posting on LinkedIn, sending emails out, doing podcasts. I've got all this content going out, and then it's still it's almost like contradictory. The more experienced ones are doing less of that, right? Because there's almost like an arrogance. And again, I've been in this boat, by the way, so I don't mean this as an attack. Almost an arrogance, like I shouldn't have to, right? I've got all the experience. I've been around for this many years. I shouldn't have to do this, right? And there's almost what we call it, like the polarity principle, right? So what's happened is, we, even if we know intellectually that the way I'm going to get more business, the way I'm going to get the clients I want, the way I'm going to get the business I want is to put myself out there. We almost hold back because we're scared of rubbing people up the wrong way, or pissing people off, or looking too desperate, or looking too salesy. Almost. Again, give me yes or no in the chat box if this is making sense, or you relate to that in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, who here's got that fear of raising your head above the parapet? One of the things that we do with our clients, we encourage them to post, we encourage them to interact with their potential clients on social media platforms. And they say things, well, I don't know what to say, or I'm kind of a bit reluctant. And then part of it is this imposter syndrome where they go, well, who am I to give a hiring manager advice on their hiring or whatever? And I would argue, who are you not to? You've probably got more experience than them when it comes to that particular matter. But there is an element of fear about doing that. But as Drew says, if you don't do it, but your competitors are, you're invisible.
So,
sorry, go on.
What we find is that as a firm, as an agency, you're going to fall into one of four boxes with your ideal clients. So number one, this is where most of you sit right now, is you're obscure, right? So what I mean by obscure is that your clients don't even know you exist, right? So you're really good at what you do. You've got all this experience, but beyond the sort of small network of clients you're working with, anyone outside of that, the main market, don't know that you exist. The other scenario is that you end up ignored, right? So again, linking back to threat number one, which is a commodity trap. Maybe we're putting content out there, but we're doing it in safe mode, right? So we don't want to say anything too extreme or anything too out there. We're doing it in safe mode, and then we end up looking like every other recruiter to end up ignored. When what we really want, on the other end of the scale is adored, right? We want to be loved by our potential clients, but we fear being hated, right, or disliked, right? So what we do, or what most recruiters do, they stay in a safe zone. They stay on this side of the line, not putting out content at all, or any content they put out is safe. It looks like everyone else, so we either end up completely ignored, or we end up completely obscure, we end up ignored, right? So people see our content, but they don't respond to it because it just looks like as a recruiter. What we really want is we want to get across here, right? One thing I want you to understand is that we can't achieve this without also achieving this. And what I mean by that is, when you start marketing more, sending more emails, doing more LinkedIn posts, sending more LinkedIn messages, making more cold calls, all the things that you should do to get business, you can't avoid this if you want to get this, right? What you'll find is that you're going to polarize your audience in one way or another, right? To avoid being on this side, you need to be willing to polarize your audience in one way or another. If you want to be loved by your market, you want to have people that adore you, want to buy from you again and again, you have to be willing to be hated by the other side. Ones who don't maybe have the same viewpoints as you, maybe you don't run on the same page as you, right? We have to be willing to be hated or be disliked by our clients. We want to be loved by our clients, right? So there's two camps that your clients can fall into. You can't get adored or loved without being willing to be hated. Again, someone check in, does that make sense? Give me a yes no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, nobody here needs to share their political opinions, but I think a great example is Donald Trump. Whatever your political opinions, he doesn't say, I better not say that, because some people may ignore me or not like me for it. He has an opinion, whether you like it or not, and he shares his opinion. And you think, well, that's an exception. It's not. It applies to anybody that's prepared to raise their head above the parapet. Mother Teresa, you would think, well, she hasn't got enemies, surely. But there were a certain group of people that didn't like her at all. And you think, well, how can you not like her? She was doing all that good. But there were people that didn't like her. You will always fall into one of those camps. What you don't want to be is ignored. I'll quickly share a story. Last Christmas, my wife and I were out, And my middle son rang my wife and said, "Can I have a fitness watch?" We were sitting having a coffee at the time for Christmas. It was probably about 3 weeks before Christmas. And my wife says, "Yeah, sure." We went to an Apple store and got an Apple Watch. In the UK, I don't know, about $350 or so. What's interesting that she never considered any other, and he didn't ask for an Apple Watch. He just asked for a fitness watch. But think about it. There's Garmin, there's Apple, there's Chorus, there's Poplar, there's Vantage, there's Sunto. There's a Fitbit. There's a whole array of watches. A whole array. And there's probably watches I haven't mentioned that I haven't heard of. There was no chance of us buying any of those watches that we haven't heard of. But those other organizations have raised their profile. Now, have Apple got the haters? Of course they have. Do they? But they've also got people that absolutely adore them. So somebody asked for an Apple Watch. My wife goes, "Right, let's go and get." They asked for a fitness watch. My wife goes, "Right, let's go and get an Apple Watch." There's a whole array of watches out there. Here's a question for you. In your niche, how often does your name come up with people that you've never, ever met? And I can tell you now, if you're not doing anything to raise your profile, your name's not coming up. And if your name's not coming up, you're not going to get those inbound inquiries. Again, if I can just check in on you, that's making sense. And I'm going to come around the room. And the question I'm going to ask you is, what's your biggest takeaway? But first of all, I just want to check in. Is this all making sense, first of all? I'm going to come around the room. The question is, I'm going to ask a few of you, is biggest takeaway so far? Manny, I'm going to come to you first of all, and then to you, Deborah, for your biggest takeaway. But just give me a yes or no in the chat first of all, so I just know that I'm on the right page, or we are on the right page with you. Is this all making sense so far? If it's not, please.
Hi, Terry.
Hi, Manny. How are you, sir?
Yes, good, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So, Manny, for you, what's the biggest takeaway for you so far?
I think, to be honest, I think you've covered a lot of what I have been kind of thinking about, I guess, and a lot of us in here. And yeah, just agree with a lot of things that you have covered so far, to be honest.
I'm really pleased to hear that, Manny. But any takeaway for you specifically?
Something I was working on just this morning was the USP, the selling point, in terms of, yes, that's something I have always said, 20 years experience in my field, everything else. But like you say, and dependent on what sector everyone, is recruiting in, but from 15 years ago now, there's a lot of me in the same market. So yeah, that was something I was actually working on this morning, and hearing it from you guys has made it even more sense in my own mind, if that makes sense. So that's a good takeaway there.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks for sharing that, Manny. Thank you. Deborah, biggest takeaway for you? And before you answer, Deborah, if you turn your mic on, Angela, I'm going to come to you next, Angela Herndon. But first of all, you, Deborah.
There we go. Right. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah. Hi, Terry. Yeah, I think the thing is, I mean, it is about the fact that there's more and more people doing the recruitment. And if you're working in a saturated market such as London, for me, recent poll for me was, in some way, shape or form, there are at least 260 other people touching into legal within the London market, which is my kind of focused area. So it is about how you are going to stand out, how you are going to be a bit different. And, ever since I've known of you, and I've known of you for a few years now, Terry and Drew, the bottom line is, it is about being relentless and getting out there and just being on it like a car bonnet, and sometimes that's really hard to do when you are trying to do as much as you're doing. And because the market has shifted in the fact that the clients are taking so much longer to make those decisions, there's more candidates around, they think there's more they're looking at lots of different, crocks of gold here, there and everywhere, because they think, and some of them are trying to do it themselves along alongside you. For me and what I particularly do, a lot of it is very much still contingency business and preferred supplier listing. So it's getting onto those preferred supplier lists. So you might have got that warm relationship. You might have got that thing where they're saying next time we're reviewing the list, we're definitely going to use you. So it is about that building that pipeline for the future. But it's it's a more complex thing to do. There's a lot more groundwork you need to do now than and because you can't get those physical meetings in front of people because everyone wants to do it on Teams, it's not quite the same. You can still win business on a Teams pitch or whatever, but we all know if you're sitting in front of somebody face to face, it's so much easier. And I think because more and more people don't answer the phone because of working from home, or they just want to see who it is that's leaving a message, how you get across to them has to be very different to how it's ever been. Because I've been doing this job for 25 years and it's a very, very different market. What with AI coming in and other things, it's very, very different. We've got to change shape. We've got to be that chameleon. We've got to come up with these new ideas. So, I'm working on a few projects myself of ideas that I've come up with, to try and sort of get in front of people, make that influence, get more new clients, because that was something I didn't have to worry about for a long time, because the same clients were coming back consistently time and time again to use me. But because we've got influences of what's going on in the world, it doesn't matter. And again, not going down politics, but we are talking about, I was talking to lawyers last week at a networking meeting, and they were saying they've slowed down, particularly on, say, tax, for example. And the reason I'm using this is because it's an example, because they were saying we're quieter because of what Trump's doing in America. It's having an impact on, worldwide and on London as well. It's making people very cautious. It's making people very nervous. The new project work, the exciting new projects have kind of been shelved at the moment, which is the stuff that runs alongside the resignations and the new positions. What we're seeing now is it's just we're only filling what we need to fill rather than the exciting projects and the new stuff. So we all need more clients to fill the stopgap on the regular clients that aren't necessarily hiring as much. And also, the clients are trying so many different ways to actually hire. And I actually had a very funny, I say funny, it's not funny, but I had a very funny situation where I had a client towards the end of last year that didn't use me for the very first time because they thought on LinkedIn there were just so many good candidates they could do it themselves. And they did. But then, interestingly enough, I get a call 3 months, and I raised it with them and sort of said, look, I get where you're coming from. I can see why you're doing what you want to do. You want to try and save money. I get that. Just remember, I'm here if you kind of need me. And I kind of had to bite the bullet, although I was a bit cheesed off, because every time I've ever hired for them, I found them a person, they've been successful, they've stayed. So I hadn't done anything wrong or changed in any different shape or form. But then I get the call to say, actually, that person hasn't worked out, because the work that I will do behind the scenes and how I will get that perfect match for them, because I've taken the time, to actually go in deeply to find out what I think is going wrong. And no one wants to place whoever have a credit down the line. And it's something I've got a good track record on. But, all of that. And then, they came back to me and said, actually, we do need your help because it all went horribly wrong. Can you find somebody for Tuesday? And I was like, all right, okay, fine. And I did, miraculously, because I happened to be working with another client who needed something very similar. I just had what I needed in the pot to be able to present to them. And so I think it was the actual hiring process was probably one of the fastest. It all happened and was placed within 24 hours, which is incredibly wonderful when that does happen, but doesn't happen that often, because we all know that the whole recruitment process has been extracted out to a much longer process now. For me,
and there's a couple of things going on there that you've raised, because you made some really good points there. Really good points, Deborah. And I agree with you 100%. It is more competitive now for all of you. And think about it. All you need is a phone, a telephone, a computer, and you can call yourself a recruiter. So there's more and more people entering the market, 100%. So there is more recruiters out there than ever before.
But it's how to stand out, isn't it?
That's right. And we work with recruiters all over the world. So we've got clients in South Africa, UK, and everything. So some of our American clients are targeting business over here. A lot of our English clients are targeting America because you can. I think the other point that you raised, or not, you haven't raised, but worth bringing up.
Flagged up.
And sorry?
Flagged up.
Flagged up. What did I say?
Raised.
Well,
Raised. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Right.
Sorry, Terry.
Right. That's okay. Is you might have seen some of these articles on social media. Contingent recruiters' revenue is declining. All the big contingent recruiters' revenue is declining because of AI.
Yeah.
Retained recruiters' revenue is increasing because you can't use, at the moment, you can't use AI so much for the more senior roles. So there's some of the challenges that you've mentioned, Deborah. I personally think it's going to get worse. And there's a saying: if you keep doing what you've always done but expect different results, apparently it's a form of insanity. And whatever your opinion is, for not just you, Deborah, but all of us, things are going to change because of technology. And we've got to move with that, because if we don't, this whole session is about the threats that your business are facing. And
I am doing that, but there's a lot more of it to be done too.
Absolutely. And Deborah, I've been in the industry as long as you, so we'll remember the days where you used to fax a CV. See, these youngsters don't even know what a fax is, but that's how we got CVs to clients or resumes.
Don't forget the Rolodex, Terry. Don't forget the Rolodex.
The first company I joined, they gave me a Rolodex on the phone. They said, call these people and see if you can get any vacancies. And yeah, okay.
And Lotus Notes. Don't forget Lotus Notes for the computer with the green screen.
Absolutely. Some would say the good old days. We had a big poster. Look, Drew's yawning now because I keep telling these stories. He's like, yeah, whatever.
Sorry, Drew.
But seriously, it's changed dramatically, hasn't it, over those years? And you either move with it or you get left behind. It really is as simple as that. But Deborah, thank you very much for sharing those with us. I'm going to go back to you, Drew. Thank you, Deborah.
Terry, can you answer Theo's question? And did you not say you could go?
Sorry, I did actually, but that's Theo. If you want to open your mic, buddy.
I want you can you please just repeat or clarify your end statement just before Deborah went on? In terms of, you said in your specialization, so in South Africa, I've been doing this for 30 years. I was very involved when all the consulting companies came into South Africa post-democracy, so I'm well known in management consulting, from the tier 1s to the tier 2s to the tier 3s. Are you saying you should analyze how many times your name comes up in your specialist area by people that you haven't dealt with before? Is that right?
Yeah, because
people have been referred to you.
Yeah, we'll get more referrals.
Okay.
If you're not, so example, if I share some things our clients do, so our clients will post on LinkedIn daily. They will email their list 4 or 5 times a week. They will do podcasts. They will do webinars. But they position themselves as the authority or the go-to recruiter in their market. See, if you're competing against some of those guys and you're not doing that, you're pushing water up a hill there, buddy. You stand no chance. They will get, so example, one of our clients in America, he works in manufacturing. So he reaches out to CEOs within manufacturing and asks them to be a guest on his podcast. He's then promoted the podcast on LinkedIn and other platforms. They get 150 people attending this podcast. What Sean's doing, he's just interviewing the CEO about the CEO's journey. But just by association, Sean's seen as an expert within manufacturing. Sean jokes about it. He said, all I'm doing is asking a series of questions. I'm doing it every other week, and he did the podcast every week. People reach out to him. He's seen as an expert, but he's actually pursuing that path to become the go-to recruiter in his market. Because if you don't, you're going to get ignored. As Drew was talking about earlier, you're completely obscure. Theo, who? Where? No, and
I guess you fall into the trap of, I've been doing this for so long, some people know me, they'll phone me. And you fall into that trap, I guess. They don't phone.
Yeah. And how many of us here have been to a restaurant and the meal was fantastic? The service was excellent. You leave the restaurant, you tell all your friends about it. You must go to that restaurant. A year goes by and you haven't been back to the same restaurant. They haven't done anything wrong. Just, you've forgotten all about them. Theo, I've been guaranteed that you've done excellent jobs for hiring managers. You haven't done anything wrong. They've forgotten all about you.
Yeah, no, sure.
And we all do it. We all do it. Thanks for that, Theo. I appreciate that.
Cool, thanks.
Angela, if I can come to you, if you can turn your mic on, please, Angela. And the question for you is your biggest takeaway, please, Angela.
Sorry,
That's okay.
I've been off and on because I've been waiting on these 3 calls to call me back that are candidates that we're recruiting for in oil and gas. And of course, they call as soon as I have to get on this. So that's the way it always happens. And they've been very hard to get a hold of.
Yeah, if you just explain to them that you're talking to Terry and Drew, they'll understand. And
yes, sorry.
Okay, sorry.
I am trying to get new clients because I've been in the same industry for a long time. And the 2 areas I specialize in are oil and gas at the senior level, and which is really a bizarre market right now. And they go, recruit, stop, on hold. Yes, let's start it, on hold. Let's do this, on hold. And these are all senior positions. Most of them are legal. I work with law firms too, who very rarely use retained search, but the law firms I work with do. But they always give me like one particular area that they have a really hard time recruiting. Like one of the ones that's become very competitive right now is in the labor law sector in the US. And the other area that's become kind of bizarre is manufacturing, which but this is on the oil and gas part, which is still happening international. But a lot of things that I was working on have been put on hold because of things that are going on politically speaking.
Yeah, I can get that. So what's your biggest takeaway from today for you, Angela?
Well, I missed a couple because I think AI is doing a lot of things that are. I've never done anything except retain, so I don't. If they don't want to go retained, I don't want to work with them. That's been my motto for 25 years, and but it seems like my biggest competitor here lately have been 2 of the big retained search firms, i.e. Korn Ferry, and I don't know what's the other one. It's got a new name now, CPD or something. Anyway, that I've run across. And apparently one of them, their profits went down and now they're really going up again. So I know there's still companies out there. I think that AI has changed a lot of things. I started using Chat GPT when it first came out to help me do my searches, but I've always had a proprietary database as well, which is one of the things that I always push. Because one of the things that my clients appreciate is that I have a database where I have CEOs' cell phone numbers from, 20 years ago when cell phones first came out. And a lot of people don't have access to that. You don't get that on LinkedIn. You don't get that anywhere else. But it's in my database. So that's really helpful. And what we push is the fact that we have this proprietary database. However, I'm always looking at ways to build my business. And I was unfortunately out very sick for a while. I was cancer. I'm finally recovered and everything. And so some of the people that I used to do a lot of work with are no longer around. And so I'm having to start a market again and, in the areas that I've always been good at. So, and right now, one of the ones we're doing is for the head of production for a substantial size. I guess it's a mid-sized oil and gas company. And that's why I had to take those calls because there are not enough of these engineers to go around. They apparently had a dearth of people going to college to get petroleum engineering degrees. And so now they're really hard to find. And for some reason, they don't seem to respond at all on LinkedIn or very late, So, so I'm back to my old database where I had these 2-year guys that are now 15-year guys, which is what they're looking for. So, So what I've taken away from you is that I need to change my marketing strategy and how to get more clients.
Yeah. And just very quickly on that, Angela, and not just you, I think for everybody, most recruitment business owners I speak to know how to recruit. They've got no problem finding a candidate because you've been shown how to do that in your previous company. But if you were employed as a consultant for somebody else, you were never shown how to market. You were never shown how to write copy for an email so you can get the client or the candidate to get back to you. That's not a criticism. That's just the way it is. And if you haven't been shown this, how are you expected to know how to do it? So what happens is recruitment business owners go, well, I'll just do it like this, not knowing whether it's the right way to do it or not. And that's something we can help you with. So if you've got challenges around that, about copy on your website or your emails or even your LinkedIn profile, and you're not getting any inquiries from it, let us know. And we can certainly help you with that. But let me go back to Drew, where we're going to be talking about contingent recruitment. Back to you, Drew.
Thank you. So the threat number 4 is what we call the contingency ceiling. So this one is specifically for or we specifically see it more in obviously perm recruiters. But those of you that are doing contingency, right? So Angela, I know you say do retained. If you do retained, you probably won't see this as much. But if you're still doing contingency, even a small percentage of contingency, you'll see this more and more. So typically, like contingent work means that and this has always been the case, that all the risk is on you, right? So if the hiring manager gives you a job order, if you fill the job order, you get paid. If you don't, then you don't get paid, right? And I guess before AI, like a typical fill rate would be like 3 and 10 or 30%, right? So if I work 10 job orders, I will fill 3 of them, right? And the reason you don't fill them could be that they get cancelled, they get put on hold, or it could be that they're filled by another firm, right? So often when you work contingency, you're competing with, it's not exclusive to you. You're working against 2, 3, 4 other recruiters. That number, that 2, 3, 4 other recruiters is going up all the time, right? Because like we said before, the commodity trap is happening. So if I'm a hiring manager, I can't tell the difference between all these recruiters. Like, why not get all of them to work on the job order? Plus, you're now not only competing with recruiters, you're competing with AI tools that the hiring manager is using themselves. Or I think Deborah was saying LinkedIn, right? So a lot of hiring managers now think they can do your job as good as you, right? So you're not competing with just the recruiters, now you're competing with them, right? And often they won't tell you that they're going to look for the candidate themselves as well. They give you the job order, you work it, they fill the role internally or the candidate they found, you don't get paid, right? So this happens all the time, happening more and more and more. Again, give me a yes or no in the chat box that making sense, just what I said so far. And Terry, anything you'd add to that just in terms of like the problem itself?
Yeah, and just to add to that, that as a consequence, because you don't fill most of the roles that you work on, it means that most of the time you're working, you're not generating any income. Let me repeat that. If you're filling 30% of the roles you're working on, hell, let's say it's 40. By the way, the industry norm is about 25. But let's say you're exceptional and you fill 40%. 60% of the time you're working, you're not going to generate any income. I don't know any other occupation where that's the case, where you'll work on the hope that you'll get something from it. It's almost, and I've shared this story before, it's almost like being a gambler. And hope isn't a strategy, which I'm sure you'd all agree. But if you ever met anybody that's a gambler, what they do is they share their win. You talk to them, won big yesterday, won big last week, last month. But they don't tell you all the times when they don't win at all or when they lose. And contingent recruiters are exactly saying, I had a great quarter last quarter. We did X, Y, Z. But when you look at it, 80% of the roles they worked on, they didn't fill. How many times have you worked on the role and got all the way to offer stage? And the amount of times I've talked to recruiters and they say, things are good, Terry. I've got a role I'm working on right now. I expect the offer to come in the end of the week. And I talked to them the following week. How did it go? Oh, they'll put it on hold. And we've all been there. And all that hard work that you've done, it's like getting thumped in the gut, isn't it, when that happens?
Yeah.
Or we found an internal candidate. Because they can. Because there's no commitment to you. Back to you, Drew.
Yes, we're checking, is that making sense? Give us yes and no in the chat box. Right. So the solution to this is what we call exclusive. Exclusive with cancellation. Right. So when I say exclusive with cancellation, what we want is So look, ideally, you want to work retained, right? I think I'd encourage all of you to go down a retained route. But there's some markets where you can't do retained, or it's harder for you to retain, right? So what we want at the very very minimum is we want cancellation exclusive with cancellation. So what that means is exclusive means that you're the only recruiter working on it, right? So I'm only going to work a vacancy if I'm the only recruiter working on it. So again, one of the biggest reasons you don't fill a role, you don't get paid for a role, is because you're competing with other recruiters. So we want to start again. If we go back to if we're doing this right, and we're getting the future buyers, meaning that we're the first person they think of when they have a need, we're not going in there late, right? So some of you right now, you're not speaking to the hiring manager until they've already spoke to 2, 3, 4 other recruiters, all right? So you can't do this until you do this first. But once we've got that nailed and we're speaking to the recruiter first, what we want to lock in is exclusivity, but exclusive with cancellation. So what I mean by that is a lot of recruiters sort of before AI do exclusivity, but if there's no I guess consequence for breaking the exclusivity, it's not really exclusive, right? Sometimes people think they've got exclusive because they're the only recruiter working on it. But if I as a hiring manager can cancel the vacancy, hire internally, hire for my own means, or use another recruiter, and there's no consequence, it's not really exclusivity, right? So the important part of exclusivity is the cancellation, which means, Mr. Hiring Manager, I'm going to work on it exclusively. If you cancel this role for any reason, if you fill it internally, if you fill it via any other route, whether that's you find a candidate or another recruiter find candidates, I'm still due a fee, because I'm going to spend my time, energy, resources working on this role, and I should be compensating for that, right? So if we can't lock in exclusive cancellation, we're going to end up seeing declining numbers here, right? It's going to keep going down and down and down to the point where you work in 10 jobs just to feel free. Again, if I want to check in, is that making sense? Give me a yes or no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, and think about that. If you're working contingent, and let's say your fill rate is 25%, but you make the decision and the commitment to work exclusive with cancellation, by the way, your fill rate will go to about 70%. But let's say it only goes to about 50%. You can now double your revenue without any additional cost to your business. Think about that. You're averaging 25% fill rate. You're getting 10 roles. You're filling 2.5. But now you put in exclusive cancellation. And by the way, full disclosure, you can get the client to do this if you know how to communicate the benefit in them doing it. You can get anybody to do anything, by the way, if you can communicate the benefit in them doing it. We can't go into that now, take too long. But there is a method that you use where you communicate the benefit in them using it. I've shared a story many a time. Anybody who's got kids, you either say things like that. If you don't eat your greens, you're not going to be able to stay up or go on the screen or whatever. You can get your child to eat their greens or salad or whatever, because the benefit is they can go on the computer afterwards. And you can use the same methodology with a hiring manager. If there's a benefit to them, they will consider it. If you say, hey, listen, I'm pissed off with doing all this work and not getting paid for it, so unless you're going to give me a cancellation fee, I'm not going to do it. They're going to I couldn't care less. There's no benefit to them. Why would I do that? And that's the problem that a lot of recruiters got. You can't communicate the benefit to the person. In terms of what the cancellation fee is, it's typically a third of the final fee. So if your fee is 21,000 upon completion, you would get at least 7,000 if they cancel. And you say, look, sorry, Drew, go on.
Again, what the actual fee is up to you, right? The important thing is that we're getting some commitment from the client, right? At the moment, and again, it's going to get worse. If you're working a contingency with no commitment from the client, you're going to end up, like Terry said, working long hours. And for me as well, like just to add what Terry said, like it's not so much that the role doesn't get filled and you get paid for nothing. Again, that's bad enough. But when you consider the time that you spent away from your family, from your loved ones, working on this role that you never get filled for, that to me that's the worst thing, right? It's not that you don't get paid. It's that actually you sacrifice. It's a sacrifice that you make off the back of that, right? So again, that is why we think exclusive of cancellation. Again, ideally retained, if as long as we can guarantee some form of payment if the client pulls the plug. Which how many times have you been left there where the clients filled the role internally or whatever, and sometimes I haven't even told you, right? So you can continue work on it, you continue sending CVs, I haven't even told you, right? So it's to avoid situations like that. Terry, there's a question from Theo. Theo, do you want to unmute just to ask your question?
Sure. I just want to know, it's quite a new concept to me. Seldom, you really don't hear of it here. Have people on the forum successfully applied it? Have people successfully received a cancellation fee? I know in my search assignments, in my executive search assignments, that absolutely it's in there. Clients honor it, they've signed it, etc. So that's fine. But on my contingency side, I really haven't seen this before. I'd just like to...
Let me ask you a question, Theo. Have you ever asked for it?
No.
Well, that's why you haven't seen it. Because here's the thing: a client won't offer to do this unless you ask for it.
No,
so,
sure. Yeah.
If you haven't asked for it,
where are you based, Theo?
Sorry?
Where are you based?
In Johannesburg, South Africa.
Okay, so yeah, we've got clients in South Africa doing it right now.
Okay.
But they're asking for it every single time. And full disclosure, not all clients will agree to it. But that's okay, because we've all spoken to a hiring manager and they go, yeah, actually, I'm looking for an XYZ. If you know anybody, send them over. And a rookie recruiter puts the phone down, high-fives their colleague and says, yeah, just got a job order. You've got nothing. How many of you sent over CVs or resumes? I sent them over 30 years ago. I'm still waiting to hear back from the hiring managers. Because that's what happens. If you know anybody, send them over. Whoa. Before we do that, can I just get some criteria how important this is to you? And there's a series of questions that you ask so that they agree it would be beneficial to me to work exclusively with a cancellation.
Okay. Got you.
Back to you, Drew.
Awesome. Perfect. So moving on to threat number 5, right? Threat number 5, and we'll spend probably the least time on this one because I think it's almost self-explanatory. Threat number 5 is the AI blind spot, and what I mean by this is, so we spoke a lot about, I guess, some of the consequences AI can have on you on the negative side. The fact of the matter is, and I'm sure we're all at the point now where we know this and understand this, AI is here to stay. One of the biggest mistakes we're seeing right now is recruiters not leveraging AI at all. Right, so they're reluctant to do it, right, and it could be for a number of reasons. Some of it's they've tried it with our clients, or not even clients, people who've spoken to have tried it, not got the results they want first time around, and then sort of said, "Oh, AI is no good," and then sort of come away from it rather than trying to get better at it. Or there's people that sort of, I guess, have this almost ego towards it, like they're saying to themselves, like, I've got all this experience. I'm so good at this. AI cannot replace what I do, so I'm not even going to look at it to get me to help what I do, right? AI, there's certain parts of what you do that AI cannot touch, right? And I'll stand by that. There's certain parts of it where it can definitely help leverage your time, right? Make the things that you do quicker, smoother, faster, right? And the problem is, if you're not using it at all, and as a firm just like you who are going to use it, again, you're at the end of the day, you are going to lose, right? Again, it might be tomorrow, might be that 5 years, probably not 5 years down the line, a year down the line, you are going to lose out. So anyone here that's not actively looking at ways that you can use AI to improve your current processes, whether it's the marketing side, whether it's the sales side, whether it's the delivery side, anyone who's not doing it, not actively looking for ways, not, again, constantly looking for ways to plug AI into your process, then you're gonna miss out. I mean, we use it, and our clients use it for every part of the process, right? And again, they're not relying on it, but some people are using it for doing content. Some people are using it to help format TV. Some people are using it to help organize interview notes. Some people are using it to help take the recording of their sales calls, plug it into AI, and give them feedback on how the sales call went, right? So there's so many uses that you can use it for that are probably, for the most of us, untouched. And again, I think that's probably one of the biggest threats to you right now is not using it. So yeah, Rachel said, yeah, great. Yeah, great for LinkedIn content, CVs, etc. Right? So everyone's got something they use it for, I'm sure. But there's the whole variety of things that it can be used for to great effect. We need to be exploring and looking into that. Guess one check in. Does that make sense? Give me yes or no in chat box. And Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think the example you gave there, one of our clients, Michelle, There's just that, and we do as well, where you review your sales call and you get AI to review your sales calls and to look for improvements. And by the way, you didn't have to use AI, for my opinion. Every now and then, listen to your sales calls, because most people don't. And think about that for a minute. You're in a profession where you're communicating with decision makers and trying to influence them, but you're not checking in how you're doing. But imagine you supported a football team or whatever, and they weren't reviewing their performance, and they just, well, yeah, it's just the way it is. You'd think, well, that's somewhat unprofessional, isn't it? Well, how often do you review your performance? Critically as well. I'm gonna have to turn my camera off for a second, Drew. I've got a few technical problems, but I'm here though. But I'm just gonna turn my camera off. Back to you though, Drew.
Sorry, can I just check in? Does that make sense? Give me a yes or no in the chat box. Again, if you've got any questions, let us know as well. Cool. So number 5 is the air bonds. I'm going to move on to number 6, and we'll come around the room. So number 6 is what we call the delivery trap, right? So at the moment, again, this is going to be compounded with, like we said, the commodity trap, especially if you're doing contingency and you're having to work more roles, is what we call delivery trap, right? So you're going to be increasingly busy filling roles, right? The better you are at winning business, the more obviously the more clients you're going to get. And what we see, and again, this has always been a problem. But it's going to get worse, and we're already seeing the impact of this, right? So, who here has experienced sort of like what we call feast and famine, where there's like, if we do a timeline, right? Day one, like what we tend to have is like you'll get a recruiter who's got no business, right? So day one, I've got no business, and at that point, what they do is they start doing business development like crazy. So they do emails, they're doing phone calls, they're doing everything they can to get business in, right? And whatever. And then what happens is they win a client, or they win several clients, or they win several job orders, right? And all of a sudden, all of that activity, the business development activity, stops, and they jump to delivery. Now they're working on an assignment or working on several assignments to deliver, maybe even make placements, maybe even get some money. Great, everyone's happy, but then their pipeline's back at zero again, and having to start back at square one, right? So what they get is this up and down feast and famine yo-yo income, right? And you see it a lot before AI. You can see it even more now, where you have a good month, really, really good because you make placements, and actually we have to go back to business development now, working. Even desperate, doing business development in a desperate way, not winning clients, blah blah. We win a client, okay, then we stop business development, then we go back to delivery, and again we get in this sort of back and forth cycle where we never really progress to the next level because we're almost always starting from scratch. Again, give me a yes or no in the chat box. That makes sense. And Terry, anything you'd add to that?
Not this stage, Drew. No.
So give me yes or no if that's making sense. So Red said, yeah, try and spend my day. So yeah, again, and that is literally the key, right? We want to make sure, and again, you can use AI to help with this. You want to make sure that no matter what's going on in terms of delivery, even if you're on holiday, whatever, you've always got some business development ticking away in the background, right? At the moment, if you're not using AI, it's going to be even worse. At the moment, a lot of the business development we're seeing from a lot of recruiters is all manual. It's like when they are able to put thought into it, time into it, it happens. When they can't, because of delivery or even because things outside the business, it stops, right? If you've got a setup like that right now, and there's no AI, there's no automation, there's none of this what I call set and forget marketing. And when I say set and forget, I don't mean we can literally forget about it, but I mean it happens whether we are in a mood to market or not, or whether we've got time to market or not. And if we don't have that, again, you're always going to find yourself in this never-ending cycle. Again, this one checking if that makes sense. Give me yes or no in the chat box. Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, it happens all the time, and you get this famine and feast. And I know I'm repeating myself, but nothing will change until you change what you're doing. And I know you're sitting there thinking, yeah, but I know that. Of course you know. But I said earlier, it's not the knowing, it's what you do with the knowledge. Because if you're having this problem right now, and you had this problem last week and last year, what are you doing differently to avoid it? Because that's where you'll get the results.
Okay, do you want to go to 2-3 people just to get their thoughts, feedbacks, any questions?
Yeah, will do. So, Mush, I'll come to you first of all. Thoughts, feedback, or biggest takeaway, first of all, Mush, and then you.
I think the big takeaway was some of the notes I've written down. I mean, Terry, I love your message about, unless we don't change, we're still stuck in that same rut, even though everything the both of you are saying, I think, resonating with all of us. I think that unique mechanism, I think I pride myself a lot on being that differentiator, being the person that people in our industry go to for that side of things. I think we do that quite well, but just really thinking hard about that unique mechanism and how we generate talent and how we connect talent to our clients, and really trying to package that with a bit more spice than we've been doing this for 20 years and we work with over 1,000 clients. That's kind of our USP that I'll always present, but I think we need to package that better than we currently are. Just differential. I think that's my big. Everything else you said, I really agree with, resonate, and really insightful and kind of on point with what I'm thinking about as well.
Yeah. I'll share a story with you. About 2 weeks ago, I spoke to a recruitment business owner. He works in insurance. And he came into the call, again, the ego getting in the way, saying, listen, Terry, we're a 7-figure recruitment business. Great. When we looked into the figures, he employed 12 consultants. As we went through the conversation, I said, are you actually profitable now? He said, well, things are a bit tight, have been a bit tight this year. And I said, what about last year? Did you make a profit last year? He then admitted he hadn't made a profit for 4 years. Think about it for a minute. You've been unprofitable for 4 years, but you're doing exactly the same thing you were doing 4 years ago, and it's actually getting worse. Now, you might sit back and go, well, that's crazy. Why would he do that? Do you know that's what most recruiters do? Things aren't going well, but they just keep doing what they've always done. My humble opinion is that they don't know what else to do. And I get that. I totally get that. Well, this is where I've always did it.
And the issue, I think, is as you get older, you also realise that you are stuck in your ways, right? It's quite hard to deviate away from what you've been doing for 10, 15,
100%.
It's easier said than done. And you need to do it, but your brain is wired in a certain way. But if you don't, right, especially in this current climate that we're all dealing with, I think if we don't, and we don't heed what the insights you're giving us, and I think the impacts are a lot bigger now.
That's right. And I suppose
you got away with it 5 years ago. You can get away with it, right? There's enough clients out there to call you up and still feel like you're having a feast.
100%,
right? But I think you can't do that anymore. We can't get away with it anymore.
It's interesting. I'll give you 100%. And as I spoke to somebody sometime this week, and he's then saying, well, I want to retire in 10 years, but he's running the business at a loss right now, and he hasn't got a pension. And I said to him, you've got 119 paydays if you pay yourself monthly. How much longer are you going to wait before you make that decision to change things? Oh, let me think about it. What's there to think about? Next month, he will have 118 paydays before he retires. His business is declining year on year. What's there to wait for? A lot of people will. And as you rightly said, Mush, they won't be around for much longer.
That's my fear now. My fear now is seeing the pace of change and how our clients are going to recruit. And we're only 6 months into this. I'm quite nervous of what it looks like in 2 years' time. Having seen some change in the last 6 months.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. I really appreciate that and appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. James, we'll come to you next.
How you doing, Terry? All right?
Yeah, great. Thank you. James, how are you, sir?
Yeah, very good. Thanks. Very good.
Good stuff. Most obvious question. Biggest takeaway for you?
I like the Langley James way. Yeah, or that's quite a good reminder of Domino's, etc. Having their special pieces, etc. That's a good differentiator, isn't it? They all rebrand it in the same thing in a different way. That's good. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, excellent. So is that something you're looking to do then, James?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good man. Good man. Oh, can't wait to hear about it. Thanks for sharing that, James. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Angela said, old way of client development has changed. Yeah, you need to get on stuff. 100%. 100%. Look, I was joking earlier with Deborah and the Rolodex and the telephone. Things have changed a bit since the Rolodex and the telephone. That's for sure. And I think we mentioned we would encourage you not to cold call anybody, and just do your marketing. So you're just calling warm leads, and there's a way that you can market so you can identify the future buyers, because that's who you want to be talking to. Because if you identify the now buyers, they've got 4 or 5 other recruiters they're working with, but the future buyers, yeah, we're not recruiting now, but next quarter we're going to be looking for a blah blah blah. Now you can start the relationship with them now. So they're not recruiting for another 3 months. There's so much you can do between now and then, so they see you as a trusted advisor rather than, oh, another recruiter. How many times as a recruiter you've called a business and let's say the switchboard answers the phone, you say, hi, my name's Terry from Acme Recruitment, and the receptionist says, we're not recruiting at the moment. You're thinking, how would you know? You've got no idea. But that's to do with your positioning. If you call somebody and say, well, we're a recruiter, they're going to say that and they've got no idea. But you have to look at yourself and what is it that I'm doing that I'm getting that response? If you're getting lots of people saying, I'm not recruiting at the moment, have a look at what you're doing and saying that elicits that response, because that's what it's all about. Back to you, Drew. Back to you, Drew.
Okay, cool. So moving on to, again, someone checking is making sense so far. Give me yes or no in the chat box. Going to go on to threat number 7, the 7th and final threat now. But let me know if it's making sense. Give me yes or no. Okay. Awesome. Cool. So threat number 7, so the 7th final threat. Again, I just want to recap quickly because I've had a few people ask for the threat. So number 1 was what we call the commodity trap, right? So this is that the client, your hiring managers can't tell you apart from other firms, so they buy based on price, or you're having to work contingency because they're comparing you with other firms. And the solution to that is to have a unique mechanism of some sort, right? So when you talk about what you do, yes, it might on paper be the same as what the recruiter down the road does, but we talk about it in a different way. We give our unique process, your unique way of doing what other recruiters do, a unique name, so I can see it, so the hiring manager can see it as a differentiator. Number 2, we've got the cold outreach addiction, right? So the transition is we want to stop going after now buyers. We want to start going after future buyers. So now buyers is where the majority of the market are putting their time and attention. So there's more competition, but less response. Whereas if we go for the future buyers where there's more people that we can reach and higher response, again, that's the solution to that. Number 3 is the invisible expert problem, where your prospects or the wider audience don't even know that you exist, don't know how good you are. So again, we call it the polarity principle, where you can be very obscure, ignored, or you can be adored or hated, right? And we need to cross that bridge to be willing to be hated in order to be adored. Number 4, we've got the contingency ceiling. So again, I won't sort of talk too much about what contingency is. We're all familiar with that, but the solution is to work contingency or exclusive with cancellation, right? So we want to be the only recruiter working on that role, but we also want to have the cancellation in place, or ideally retained. Number 4 is the AI blind spot. So where can you be using AI in your current processes to leverage or speed up what you do, or make it less time consuming for you as the owner? And then number 6, we've got delivery trap. And then number 7, the 7th threat is what we call the fatal assumption. So number 7 is the fatal assumption. And the fatal assumption is, and again, this sort of ties all these together, is the belief that being a great recruiter is good enough to build a great business. So the belief that being a great recruiter is good enough to build a great business. So, and again, this is one that hasn't really changed since AI. It's just got worse, right? So what tends to happen is most recruitment business owners are good recruiters in the past, right? So maybe we work for another agency, we've done reasonably well, and we decided, you know what, I'm going to set up on my own, right? So most recruiters I speak to are good at what they do, very, very good at what they do. They're good at the process of recruiting, the process of finding candidates, the process of sourcing candidates. We're good at it. We know what we're doing. We're experienced. that alone does not make you a good business owner, right? So again, sometimes we can have almost this, and again, I've been there as well, have this arrogance that I'm good at what I do, therefore clients should almost come to me. Like, why are these other less experienced recruiters within the clients that I should be winning when I'm better than them, right? And again, I've been there myself, so I understand it, but it's the wrong assumption to have. For you to grow the business you want to grow, not only do we need to get good at delivery, which is probably the part you already got, you also need to be equally good at business development, like marketing, getting the attention of your ideal clients. You need to be equally as good at sales. How do we turn that attention into sales meetings with hiring managers? How do we convert that hiring manager into a client that's paying the right fee and the right terms? We need to be good at all three assets: the attention, the conversion, and the delivery to get the business that we want. Again, just want to check in. Does that make sense? Give me a yes or no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, on that assumption, the assumption is that because I'm a great recruiter, I'm going to have a successful business. There is no correlation between the two. Absolutely none whatsoever. 30 years of doing this, the lifeblood of your business is sales and marketing. Because you can be the greatest recruiter in the world, but if you haven't got clients, it counts for nothing. And it's very rare that we meet a recruiter that says, I just can't find the candidates. I just can't recruit. 95% of recruiters, when we ask this question I ask probably 4 or 5 times a day, if I could help you overcome the number one challenge in your business right now, what would it be? It's around business development. Just give me a yes in the box if that's the number one challenge for you right now. Just give me a Y in the box if your number one challenge is around winning new clients. Give me yeah. And if it's not, by the way, give me a no. So Rick, it's not winning new business. And I'm going to challenge you on this, Rick, because the recruiters that say I've got more business than I can handle, the next question I ask is this contingent business or retained business? So let me ask you the question, Rick. Just give me a yes if the recruitment you do is retained. 20% retained.
We do 20% retained. We do ask for not the cancellation. We do a little different approach. If we do exclusive searches, we ask for it on the front end. So we're essentially asking for a priority search. So we want 1/3 to paid up front in order for us to commit to the search, and we put them at essentially the top of the list to work on their positions. It's very effective. I've never tried asking for the cancellation on the back end, but I've always asked for it on the front end.
So I don't understand that, Rick. So you're asking for exclusive, you're asking for payment up front. How's that different from working retained? What's the difference for, as far as you're concerned?
There's truly not much difference. I think it's just more of a mindset. The retained is typically broken into 3 payments. It's a 25-30% fee. It's still 1/3 up front, and then they just make 2 more payments. With the exclusive, they may pay the 1/3 up front, and they could technically still fill it internally on their end, and we will happily cancel the search and stop the search efforts, but there's no refund on that 1/3 payment. So
I see. Yeah.
It's a little less of a commitment.
Yeah. And what do you call that service? You call that to your clients, you'll call that exclusive?
We call that priority. So it's like high priority. They go to the top of the list.
Excellent. So just listen to Rick's language there. High priority. Can you see the benefit to the client? Remember I said you can get the client to do almost anything if you can communicate the benefit. As far as the client's concerned, they now go to the top of the list. This is a high priority. If you can communicate the benefit to the client, you're going to get buy-in. I really appreciate you sharing that, Rick. Thank you very much.
Rick,
can I add one more to that?
Again? Sorry, I missed.
Sorry, one at a time. Sorry, Rick. You first of all. Repeat what you said, please, Rick.
Yeah, just to add to that. So typically I'm explaining to them that when we work contingent searches, we're averaging about 8 searches at any given time. So they only have about an hour to 90 minutes a day dedicated to your search. But if we convert the search to priority, the recruiter's typically working on no more than 2 or 3 searches. So they're able to dedicate 4 or 5 hours. So it's a much higher success rate, much higher fill ratio. So we've averaged for the past 7 years, we average a 54% fill ratio just because we approach it that way. So the client knows the fee, it's the same fee. They're just putting a little skin in the game up front. So we rarely get a client that says no.
Excellent. I really like that, Rick. Thank you. And again, note the language, the benefit to the client. If you do this contingency, this is what you get. If you do this on priority, you're now going to get 4 to 5 hours. Fantastic. Really like that. Thanks, Rick. Mush, I'm going to come to you because I know you asked the question. What's your question, please, Mush?
Oh, no, I was just asking Rick just to run through the pricing of the high priority again, how that works. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, so same concept. If you take a 25% fee, I'm essentially just going to divide it into 3 payments. Some clients, I actually get them to pay in 2 payments, so it's even a larger commitment up front. But if we take a $21,000 fee, essentially I'm charging them $7,000 up front, and that's their priority deposit for us to work on the search. Even if it's retained, it's the same upfront fee. Sometimes retained can scare people away. But as soon as I never just go from retained down to contingency to essentially no commitment, I'll go from retained and then I'll drop it down to priority, and it's the same 7,000. But if they have an internal recruiter who's working on the search and they fill it, then they don't have to pay us payment number 2 and 3, which is the commitment you get from a retained search. On the priority, they're only committed to that first fee unless we fill the position, then they would pay the rest.
Excellent. Really appreciate that. And I was saying earlier that, most recruiters, their challenge is new business. And Rick said no. And Rick's proved me wrong, by the way, because often when a recruiter says no, we've got plenty of business, what they mean is they've got plenty of job orders, not plenty of business. So they say I'm busy. And very quickly, when I first entered this world of coaching, because my background is I've only done retained, is only my background. So I used to work with recruiters, 20 odd years ago, and they would say things like, I'm just rushing out to see a client. I've got loads of clients at the moment. So in my head, a client is somebody that's paid you an invoice. If they haven't paid you an invoice, it's not a client. And, within probably 6 months or so, they were then saying they were struggling. I said, well, you had loads of client meetings. You were rushing out. Oh, yeah, but I didn't fill the roles. And I didn't quite get the concept of recruiters were working and not getting paid for it. And for the record, if a client hasn't paid an invoice, it's not a client. It's just a prospect. You've got nothing to celebrate until they actually pay you. And I feel really strong about it when you call them a client, but there's no engagement on their part.
Rick, can I ask a question? What is your biggest challenge?
I mean, so we have a lot of job orders coming in. I'd say 2 smaller challenges. We're working on developing more salespeople so we can continue to grow and expand. And then also just on the delivery side, the newer recruiters who are working the lower salary roles, they're just taking a little bit longer to get them up and running. So it's really just training and development just to get the staff up and running. But we're 24 recruiters, and we're based in the United States.
Okay, so when you said it's 20% retained, what percentage is contingency? So not the priority, it's the normal contingency.
So I'd say, well, it's 80% contingent, 20% retained, but obviously there's a portion of that's also contract staffing. So we probably do about 15% contract business as well.
So 80% contingency. So what of that contingency? What is like the priority where you get paid up front? What percentage?
Out of the 80% contingency, probably half of that is priority.
Right, and then what's your fill rate on the contingency side?
I don't have it broken down. I just know company-wide, our fill ratio is 54%. So we're filling more than 50% of every job that walks in the door. We do turn down clients, and we don't work on any contingent search unless I have at least exclusivity. So if they're working with multiple searches, we turn it down immediately. So it just helps me hire better recruiters here if they know I'm bringing in quality job orders.
When you say if 54% are going, sorry, if 46% are going unfilled, what makes a quality job order in your mind?
If it's competitive compensation, if I get exclusivity with the client, I don't want to work with HR. I want to work directly with the hiring manager. The search is not a year old and it's been reworked by 3 recruiting firms, so
we just kind of walk through 8 or 9 different criteria just to make sure it qualifies as an A job order. And then, then we'll assign it to the team. But if it doesn't meet the criteria, it could be we would call like a B job order. I might still work it, but then that's where I absolutely need priority retained. I need some sort of skin in the game if there's something wrong with the search.
Okay. It might be worth taking a deeper look at your numbers. I mean, again, obviously we're just speaking about 30 seconds now, but if you got 20% retained, which I'm assuming is going to be more likely, the fill rate's going to be at the higher end. You've got 80% that's contingency, but some of that's priority. But then you said about half of that's priority, half that's not. And your fill rates, so you're not filling about 46%. That might be just the 46%. There might just be the contingency that's not priority. It might be worth looking at that and saying, well, actually, is it worth taking this on at all? If we're not consistently not filling these roles, then do we need a team as big as we've got? Because actually, when we get it on priority, when we get it on retained, we always fill it. Again, I don't know, just sitting here, but it might be worth having a deeper look, just diving into that side of things. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, that's definitely a good perspective.
It's almost half the job orders you're working on, you're not filling. So half the time your team are working and not generating any income. Nearly, it's 46%, I think.
Unless they're priority, though, because it's getting paid up front for the priority. So there still might be income on those.
Yeah.
But you need to have a look at see, because it might not be, and then it's like, well, why take them on?
Well, actually, I won't ask you. Yeah, well, look, perhaps we can have a chat, Rick, a one-to-one offline, so to speak, because it'd be worth looking at those numbers.
Sure.
Because you could, as Drew rightly said, you could increase the fill rate with no additional cost by just doing things slightly different. And yeah, you've literally had 20% of your revenue, but it's just looking at it differently. And I won't go into it now. But yeah, just looking at things slightly different, you could add 20-25% to your revenue and reduce your costs. Actually, if you think about it, yeah, you would definitely more think about this. You could increase your revenue by 20-30% and reduce your costs at the same time. Yeah. But yeah, I'll get. I don't know if Nita's still here. If you can reach out to see if we can get a date and we'll have a look at that.
Tell you what, anyone that wants the recording of this call, the free book like we promised, or just wants to speak to me or Terry, I'm going to put the link in the chat box now. If you go to makemoreplacements.com/triage, it's just there to book a 15-minute call. On that call, we'll get your delivery address, get the recording sent to you as well. Then obviously we'll have a chat about, if you want any help implementing these ideas into your business. But if you go to makemoreplacements.com/triage, book a 15-minute call. We can get everything shipped out to you. Any questions before we wrap up? If not, yes, click the link now, because obviously when we close the page down, it's gonna disappear. So click the link and book in 15-minute brainstorm session. Look, thanks a lot for your free book.
No, sorry, I was saying click on the link to get your free book, but yeah, you carry on.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your time today and the questions. Again, we always love it when we've got a group that's engaged, that's participating. Hope you've enjoyed it. Again, if you have, obviously we tend to do it once every couple of months or so. Make sure you look out for the next one. Terry, anything you want to add before you wrap up?
Yeah, if you enjoyed it, tell your colleagues and then invite them along.
Yep.
But our sole aim is to help you generate more leads, make more placements, and earn money. That's our agenda.
Deborah, the book hasn't been released yet. So I think you've got our previous book. This is a new book that's coming out in a couple of months. Hasn't been released yet. So I hope you haven't got it.
If you have got it, you're the only one that has, because we haven't yet.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for your time, guys.
Excellent. Until next time, folks, take care, take action, be relentless.